afternoon, and welcome to Unlock the Stock. As you know by now, this is a platform designed for retail investors to gain access to corporate management and to get to know them and their companies a bit better. This episode is sponsored by Easy Equities, the platform that allows you or helps you to grow and protect your wealth, where you can invest in local and international shares, property, unit trusts, cryptos, bonds, and actively managed ETFs. Plus, you get access to Easy Protect Life Insurance and Easy Credit Lending to back your financial journey. We're pleased to welcome Orion Minerals to Unlock the Stock today. We're joined by Dennis Waddle, the Chairman, and Tony Lennox, the CEO, who will take you through a presentation shortly. Unlock the Stock is only possible with our technology partner, Lumi Global. Please visit their website at lumiglobal.com to learn more about their various online AGM and investor solutions. Our host today will be the Finance Ghost and Mark Tobin of Coffee Microcaps, who will lead the Q&A session. Before we start, there are a few housekeeping notes. Dennis and Tony will take you through a presentation, which will be followed by Q&A. You can post your questions by typing them into the chat box at the bottom of your screen. The event is being recorded and will be available on our Unlock the Stock YouTube channel next week, together with about 60 other videos that you can take a look at. You will see an email when we begin the Q&A session, and if you want to be added to Orion Minerals distribution list, please take note of that email address and reach out to them. Jonathan, at this point, I'm ready for you to share the presentation, and Dennis, I'm going to hand over to you to take us through it, please.
Thank you very much, Vanessa, and welcome to all attendees, and thank you for your time today to get an update on Orion. Today we'll provide an overview of our projects and the development plans that Tony, our new MD and CEO, has been focused on over the recent months since his appointment as MD and CEO. This webinar also gives me the opportunity to introduce Tony to all of you. He's been very much focused on working through the development plans for Prieska and for O'Keefe. So he hasn't spent a lot of time in the public domain at this point, but you'll be seeing a lot more of him in the future and in the not too distant future. I just wanted to say how pleased we are with Tony's appointment. The board is delighted that we've been able to secure the services of someone of Tony's calibre with an excellent track record of project development and execution, and also, very importantly, operating very successfully a number of mines. So it's a really critical time for Orion and the board to have Tony join us and to take on this new job. So again, Tony, welcome to the crew. We'll move on to the next slide. Just 1 second. Here we go. Yeah, I'm not going to read all of this, obviously. Just a quick overview. There's information here, and it'll be available to all of you following this the webinar. The capital structure as is set out there. Our current loan arrangements with IDC, who are a shareholder and a very important financier to us with respect to both projects. There are some detailed notes at the bottom of the slide, which obviously I won't read at this stage, but the information is there for your benefit. I just want to really point out we're dual listed. Our primary listing is on the ASX, and we have a dual listing on the JSE, which is proving to be, very, very important to us. The split here, you can see our holdings are roughly 50-50, but the actual jurisdiction of our holdings in terms of shareholder numbers sits with the JSE, and very importantly, the volume of trading. Certainly our JSE shareholders have a better appreciation and understanding of the significance of our portfolio in the Northern Cape of South Africa. And as an Australian company, we're delighted that we've been able to, since 2017, build a very significant portfolio, highly prospective. The job has taken us perhaps a bit longer than we would have liked, but it doesn't diminish the quality of the projects that we've pulled together. And Tony will be giving you a lot more information on that shortly. This also shows our shareholders. We have a number of significant, very supportive shareholders, as is set out on the screen, a very highly qualified board, and also, as I mentioned earlier, having Tony come on as MD and CEO as a mining engineer with a very strong track record of project development, which is critical for us going forward. Thank you. We'll move to the next slide. Just as an overview, as I mentioned, from 2017, there was a lot of effort went into the acquisition of a very, very large portfolio in the Northern Cape. Coming from Australia, it just really surprised me that there isn't that sort of the small to medium size mining company, exploration companies in South Africa, anywhere to the extent that there is in Australia. I can assure you, if this package of ground was in Australia, there would be 10 majors all over it. So you know, we see it as a very highly prospective package at Prieska. You know, it's decades since there's been any work done there. It was a very successful mine with Anglo Vaal. Over 1 million tonnes of zinc was recovered, nearly 500,000 tonnes of copper. And the upside since we've started drilling this deposit is staggering. It's, you know, there really is enormous upside in this project. And then to O'Keep, another very prospective package of ground. Over 2 million tonnes of copper have been recovered from O'Keep going back decades. And it's just amazing that there hasn't been a significant amount of work done on this project area in the recent decades. Even our geophysics, our SkyTem geophysical program has just highlighted so many targets for follow-up. And Tony, again, will elaborate on some of that in this talk. But also, again, I just want to sort of restate the significance of this package and the potential for significant upside growth. I'll leave it at that. I'll hand over to Tony. He can just cover off in more detail of what we have planned in the coming months on both project areas. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you very much, Dennis, for the introduction, and also thank you, Vanessa, earlier on. It is a pleasure to be here and talking with you and walk you through what I've been working on for the last few months, of course, in association with the executive leadership team of Orion and the board, and it's a pleasure to be able to share this with you at this point in time. Next slide, please. Anyone who is familiar with the stock would be aware of the two primary projects within Orion, which attracted me to the board of Orion back in late 23. But during the course of last year, immersing myself in understanding these more fully. Firstly, we have our flagship operation, Prieska, PCZM, and in the pack there you'll see some of the key numbers and metrics. So the resource we are working with, and along with the resource, the key dimensions or the key financials that came out of earlier this year, the DFS that was put to the market at the end of March. We also have the Flat Mines project that has once again all the same metrics and went to the market earlier this year. And I will talk more about the Flat Mines or the O'Keep dimension to Orion Minerals a little bit further in the presentation. A couple of key numbers stand out for me in those two DFSs, and it's the last line in the slides, the capital intensity. I'll come back to those later in the presentation, but they are very compelling numbers, and they give me comfort that Orion, PCZM and O'Keep in the future will be very, very solid performers in the market. Next slide, please. Okay, the flagship operation, PCZM, the head frame, it's on site, hasn't been taken away, been there for 50 years. And it's a wonderful monument to the history of mining in South Africa and also the future of what we intend to do in the Northern Cape. We have two fully permitted projects, Prieska and O'Keep, and we have wonderful opportunity. As Dennis touched on, the upside that exists for Orion in the Northern Cape is it's just fabulous. And I have been part of South Africa since 2010. COVID took me away for a while, and it is pleasing to be back here and to be involved with the Orion Group for Prieska. We have funding underway. I'll touch on that a little later on. And the most important thing is the points on the slide that talk about the focus area. That is project execution, value engineering, and operational readiness, such that we are in a position to bring to the market by Christmas of next year concentrate out of Prieska, the first time for 30 years. And that gives me great pleasure to be involved with the organisation and to be leading the organisation here in country and working with those in the Northern Cape. Next slide, please. People have asked me over the last few months. I had a period of time where I was somewhat trapped in Australia whilst I was waiting for my work visa. But during the course, where is Orion going? Here is where Orion is going. This is our strategy, and it revolves around, on the left, our flagship operation, and on the right, the O'Keep project at Nubberbeep in near Springbok. We have on surface at the moment, from trial mining last year, 23,000 tonnes of oxide material, supergene and oxide, and we are assessing at the moment what we'll do with those. The main game, though, is the phased introduction of Prieska. The uppers first, where concentrate will be delivered from at the end of next year, and then the steady process to unlock the deeps. The deeps still requires 2 years of dewatering, and during that period of time, we will be operating the uppers, a much smaller amount, but nevertheless, it allows Orion and all the people who will be associated with us in the future to become match fit. In addition to that, there is also the O'Keep project, which is fundamentally, at this point in time, 3 deposits, Flat Mine North, East and South, and they are separate discrete ore bodies which we'll be bringing back to a central concentrating facility. When the work was completed at the end of March, we, the board, thought there was more optimisation needed, so we are embarking on an optimisation process around O'Keep to lift its financial metrics. So there is a runway showing what we are going to be doing for the next handful of years. Next slide, please. Okay, where does Orion sit on the global cost curve? This was put together for us by Fraser McGill, and it is a comparison with some 380 odd peers in the copper industry, and it shows Prieska well and truly positioned in the centre of the first quartile on an all-in sustaining cost basis, which is net of byproduct credits. O'Keep sits in the third quartile, and as you see, there is the arrow pointing to the second quartile. That's where we wish to move O'Keep during the course of the optimisation. The ore is there, the material is there. It is a matter of having a much better capital structure and bringing forward in our production profile, or that is currently sitting a little bit further back in the production profile. And as we do that, I'm quite confident O'Keefe will move to the left and start to tip into the second quartile. To have two projects both in the first and second quartile of the global cost curve, it's a very pleasing position for Orion. Thank you. Next one. Funding. It is a space that the juniors live in and have to deal with very much on a day-by-day basis. In our completed, or what we have in place at the moment, we have the ongoing equity capital raising, which you've seen in the market. We have a share purchase plan, and that has been the case on more than one or two occasions. We have identified offtake partners, and we also have excellent support from the IDC and its funding options for both Prieska and O'Keefe. In the near term, we are currently in discussion with a range of offtake partners to assist us with funding of the business. The IDC sits there. It has complementary funding. We also have a facility in place with a North American or Canadian company, Triple Flag, and we are going through the process at the moment of working through the sequencing and the drawdown and the associated arrangements between Triple Flag, the IDC, and the well-advanced offtake discussions that we have. There is always the place for the ongoing equity raising, and in the future we will be in a more traditional space with debt funding. So that is a simple snapshot of where we sit, being the IDC, Triple Flag, and our current negotiations and conversations with offtake partners. Thank you. So what do we do with all the funds? It is about project execution. And this is where I have worked for some 40 years in the market. And whether it's been new projects or projects that have been operating subpar in accordance with their shareholders. So the project execution is the next phase of our life, and it is a very important phase because it converts investment into cash flow at the end of next year and thereafter. Next slide. So a bit of an overview. The most important thing for Orion is to start to define what execution looks like for both Prieska in the first instance and O'Keefe once its optimization has been completed. So it looks to project leadership. It is the people on the ground who convert conversation, ideas, and a resource into future cash flow. It is the governance that sits around that as well. It is not a haphazard arrangement. It requires steadfast processes every day to deliver the results that will flow from well-executed project definition. Two factors that I've always been part and parcel of and have featured in my history of development have been value engineering, where you look to the function of the dimension of your business, be it the concentrator, the mine, the backfill system, the transport of product to market, and you look to do it with the most effective use of cost. So it's a function over cost arena. Operational readiness is slightly different. That is where we will be working to ensure that there is no erosion of value as the project starts up. There have been many people who have had unpleasant experience with erosion value, slow to start, not full nameplate capacity, off-spec concentrate or product to market. Operational readiness allows us to work with the project, within the project, and deliver a much cleaner, crisper start to production. And within your traditional project execution arena, it is the whole aspect of your work structures, your construction packages, EPCM, contractors, consultants, all the assistance that you need to pull together in a very intense time frame to deliver what our shareholders are looking for. Next slide. So the first dimension in that resonates for me, and the organisation is starting to understand clearly, is skilled professionals, experienced team. At present, we have eyeballed, identified, and have 4 key people who are, for want of a better term, idling, such that they are ready to join Orion once funding is in place. We have identified a project director, a director of mining, a director of processing, and the project advisor, so a specialist individual who understands all the intricacies of project delivery. Across those 4 people is the better part of 160 years of experience. And you add that to my now 40 years of experience, 200 years sitting in that top steering committee, let alone the project execution team. The steering committee has the PCZM general manager, it has the O'Keefe general manager, because they will be the ultimate owners of what is delivered, as will our shareholders. And so that structure has delivered time and time again. It is tried, it is tested, and we have already identified the key people to fill those roles. Deliberate processes. So it is about skilled people operating within a process. And what we have here, once again, on the left, they are straight from the 4th slide, and they show the key dimensions. If you look at the project implementation, it is all about outcomes, and the outcomes are on the right. The project implementation team, the steering committee, the work packages, they all exist in that arena, but 2 key dimensions, as I've already talked about, are value engineering and operational readiness. Value engineering is about delivering improvement of functionality over cost, and well-executed value engineering, and we have a specialist identified for that, can deliver between a 5 and 10% capital saving on DFS capital numbers, and we'll be targeting that. We would sit in that arena. The other thing that will sit very clearly is in the bottom right-hand corner is the Orion concentrate production schedule out of PCZM. So it shows the uppers at the outset, it shows the zinc, it shows the copper. That is the profile we wish to achieve. Operational readiness ensures and gives you the best opportunity to deliver that without, as I've said before, value erosion. So there is hit the numbers, hit them on time. One of the key dimensions that sit there are the capital intensity figures. When I look at Prieska and O'Keefe, and in particular Prieska being our flagship, it's an excellent VMS deposit, and in my view will be, in the fullness of time, a flagship VMS deposit around the planet, alongside the Bathurst mining camp in Canada, Kidd Creek, Neves-Corvo in Portugal, those sort of deposits. The capital intensity you see for both Prieska and O'Keefe is very low by comparison to our peers who are developing large, low-grade porphyry copper or the alike, and with very often twice the capital intensity. So that allows Prieska a better position in our delivery of product to market. So we spend less for the amount of material we produce in our design. What does all that equate? The next slide, please, is measurable outcomes. So the Christmas tree, concentrate by Christmas 2026. We are still very busy working through the funding package that we have discussed earlier on, but it is progressing and progressing well. So that is the approach for the phased introduction through the uppers into the deeps. And already there are a couple of aspects in there that are asterisks where early value engineering is underway. I won't talk about the amount of value that seems to be presenting itself for saving and scheduling purposes, but suffice to say, it is pleasing to see the organisation coming to terms with that. You then see further down the track where the Prieska Deeps come into place 42 months further on. So we will be here working with our project team for the next 4-5 years to bring all of this to market, look after our shareholders' funds and deliver value to our shareholders through concentrate, both 13 months down the road and 42 months with our flagship operation, Prieska. Thank you very much. Next slide. There we are.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Dennis, as well for that. So I'm going to hand over to Mark and the Finance Ghost, and they can just start with the questions that they've received. And just as a reminder to everyone who's on the call, if you want to ask a question, please type it into the chat function at the bottom of your screen. Over to you guys.
Thanks, Vanessa. I'm going to jump in first. Tony, Dennis, thank you. Thank you to everyone who's attended the call. It's a very big turnout. So, you know, shock and horror, companies that do share purchase plans and allow retail investors to participate get a lot of retail investor interest. Who would have guessed? So well done to the team at Orion for supporting the little guy bluntly. I think let's jump straight into the questions. I've received some goodies in my DM, which I'll get to shortly. But there was a comment right at the beginning of the preso around you felt like if this resource was picked up and just planted in Australia, you know, I think your exact wording was the majors would be all over it, which I think talks directly to some of the geopolitical South African risk more so than the commodity risk. So I just wanted to just latch onto that a little bit and just get I guess a temperature check from you on where we are with South African geopolitical risk. And it ties into something I received in my DMs, which was around the visit by Minister Gwede Mantashe, who went to Prieska. And, you know, are you feeling confident about where the geopolitical story is for South Africa right now, the trajectory, government support, just some commentary around that kind of stuff? Nice, easy start.
Dennis.
Yeah, Tony was locked up in Australia waiting for his visa from the South African High Commission in Canberra. So I made the trip across. I've done a few in recent months, but I attended the site visit from the minister and an entourage from the department, and we also had a number of other community members, mayors and so forth. It was an excellent visit. I think it took a lot of people by surprise, even from the department, in my view, how advanced things are at Prieska, the quality of the team, the enthusiasm of the team. You know, it was a very positive event. I was just delighted with the minister's commentary about Prieska, how important it is for the Northern Cape, how important it is for South Africa. It is a world-class mine, and just getting back to specifically to the question, there is, and I think it comes back to, there's just a different. I was surprised when I got involved in South Africa in the Northern Cape. There's been such a wonderful portfolio of projects across the country in the mining industry, but it is generally held by the larger companies. And in Australia, you get the same thing, but there's a much broader distribution of projects amongst juniors and junior explorers, junior miners, and so forth. So I think it's within South Africa, we're just delighted that we've gone now to 23,000 shareholders, getting the small retail investors to understand what we're doing. We feel very confident about the support from the government. We've got great support from the IDC. I've been pleased also. I mean, there are always challenges, but we have strong community support. We put a big effort into our community relations going right back before we were required to. It's part of our DNA. That's been really successful. We've got some excellent people on our executive team who have dealt with that for many years. It's very evident when we have our community meetings. We do have strong support also out of Europe. We have strong support from Delphi, out of Germany. We have support from Tembo, and then locally we're now getting strong interest from some of the institutions. And that is understandable. We've got to get some runs on the board to continue to generate that support and build on it. So look, we're very comfortable, being in South Africa. There is some pushback from Australia for various reasons, but I think it's also partly because there's so much choice in Australia. If people don't understand South Africa that well, they just tend to stay away, and they just focus on the opportunities in Australia. That is changing. We're seeing some really positive developments amongst other companies, and particularly throughout Africa, not just South Africa. So we feel very confident once we get the uppers going, we can generate cash flow, generate results, and then we talked about all the upside as well, getting O'Keefe into production. There will be more and more support coming out of Australia and globally for that matter. So yeah, look, we're very comfortable. We'd like to see more interest, but I think we've got to get some runs on the board, and that's what Tony's job is for the foreseeable future. And he recognises the opportunity. He didn't move. Him and his wife have moved back to South Africa. They haven't done that lightly. If anyone on the call knows Byron Bay, you'd say, why on earth would he leave Byron Bay to go back to Joburg? Well, there's a serious commitment there, I can assure you. So I think if Tony reflects that sort of view, well, I think there's going to be more following that. Tony, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Oh, look, Dennis, Mark, it's South Africa is a wonderful jurisdiction. Every jurisdiction has its highs and lows, and South Africa has an incredible history of mining, and diverse mining as well, I should add. So I think the opportunity here is excellent, and the visit, whilst I was trapped in Australia by the minister, was wonderful. A large entourage, and it just paid to the importance of building the relationship with the government, building the relationship with communities, and delivering in the Northern Cape. And that is a fundamental dimension of any mining company. You've got to be prepared for that, and you've got to do it well.
Tony, if you spend enough time in South Africa, you'll learn that big ministerial entourages are as South African as Boerewors and winning rugby games. So, stick around. You'll get used to that. I'll pass over to Mark.
And yeah, I will, for a bit of independent validation, confirm that yes, moving from Byron Bay to Joburg would be no disrespect to Joburg, and I know the Ghost is originally from Joburg, but that would be a slight downgrade. Maybe I'll just leave it at that. I have a question here about Copper 360, saying, are they your competitor? Well, I don't really maybe think so, but they're definitely going to be your neighbor in Keep. But maybe just touch on Copper 360 in terms of what you can learn from them, what they've experienced, maybe not fall into maybe some of the traps that they've fallen into, or kind of what they've done. You can look across the fence and see, when you're working on that value engineering, Tony, that you were talking about, some of the things. I'm sure it's okay. I've been to O'Keefe as well. It's a very small town, so I'm sure people talk. So there's there's things that can be learned from what is happening in the area more generally. So maybe just touch on anything you've kind of learned from observing Copper 360 across the fence.
Well, Mark, to be quite honest, I haven't had a great look at Copper 360. However, from my Palabora days, I know Graham Briggs. I wouldn't say I know him well, but I know him sufficiently well to sit down and have a beer with him. I was very pleased to see the appointment in June. As soon as I saw it, I reached out to him, said, look, I'm still in Australia. I know you're over there. Let's catch up. We've been in touch since. And I think the important thing is that with Copper 360, Orion will do what is in the best interest for O'Keefe, Naba Beep, and that part of the world. If we can find in the fullness of time something whereby we come together or do something or share information or any of those things, and it's in the best interest of our shareholders, I can assure you Orion will do that, and I would imagine that Copper 360 would do the same thing. So at the moment, we are focused on Prieska as well as O'Keefe, and we will do our level best, and I'm sure it will bear excellent fruit for developing and delivering copper concentrate out of the Naba Beep O'Keefe part of the world.
I'll maybe jump in there with a theme that's coming through in my DMs, and obviously it's, you look at a share price chart, obviously things have been dipping, which is obviously not what you want to see. And you've talked about getting runs on the board. I mean, Tony, you're kind of new to the job, so, hopefully those runs on the board will come. The question in my DMs is more around people just saying, look, what is the funding shortfall in terms of equity raising going forward? To what extent you can really talk to, how many more rights issues can we see? And I know it's very difficult. And for junior mining, it's extremely hard to know for sure where your funding will come from. And I think South Africa has seen quite a dearth of junior mining opportunities in recent years. So I think a lot of people they buy into the dream, but they don't necessarily understand that there's going to be some follow-on capital raising. There's a need for more equity down the line. So I guess just an understanding, because I've received probably 3 or 4 questions like that in my DMs, and I think it's something we need to talk to. For those looking at potentially getting involved in the share purchase plan or looking at buying shares, what can they expect to see in the next 18 months, 24 months, etc., around capital raising? I mean, you've talked to some of that in the Prezzo, but I think it's worth just highlighting.
Thank you for that. Look, I'll let Dennis take the lead on that. He's very skilled in that arena, and I'll follow up with a few comments at the end.
Sure. And look, it's clearly a fair question. There has been understandably a lot of disappointment with delays associated with the delivery of the Prieska DFS and O'Keefe for that matter, and that impacts on credibility, impacts on desire to participate. I guess that's where we feel it's so important with Tony's appointment, having someone with that expertise to go through project development, execution, eliminate those risks that are often associated with juniors developing new projects. We look at Prieska. Look, it's a big ask for a small company, but we've had a number of parties come through undertaking very detailed due diligence, and it's so important having de-risked a lot of the Prieska project now through very a lot of rigor. A number of the people involved in that have been introduced by Tony. They've done it before, so we're going through that process of dealing with the likes of Triple Flag, as Tony mentioned. IDC, again, they've been to site many times. We deal with them very regularly. So there's funding support coming out of IDC. There was a process we go through with Triple Flag, and potentially, if they participate in partial funding of the uppers, that would be welcomed as well. Probably the biggest ticket will be the demand that's coming out globally for concentrate, well, both for zinc and copper, but particularly the outlook for copper, as I'm sure everyone would be well aware. There's a lot of interest. I mean, if you go back to the history of concentrate production out of Prieska, they're very high quality concentrates. They're in a lot of demand. The metal traders can utilize those high quality products to add value to other lower quality products. So there's a real demand for the concentrates coming out of Prieska. So we feel that there's a real opportunity here to significantly link a funding package with an offtake arrangement. So that's a really core part of our funding package. We're also we're going through other opportunities to look at other potential equity participants to get involved. That's work in progress. We've got a data room, very detailed data room. We're very comfortable with the quality of it. Even if you go back to Triple Flag's involvement, they had a whole team of people go through for a long period of time, before they put that facility, that streaming facility to us. So, the attendees can take a fair bit of comfort from the quality of what we have to present to investment parties, whether it comes in the form of offtake funding, the IDC funding, Triple Flag funding. The equity component to that will, and clearly we can't talk about that at the moment in terms of quantum, because a lot of it will depend on the level of funding we achieve from the parties I've just mentioned. But the other way to look at it is, we have been hit heavily in the market for non-delivery. It doesn't impact on the quality of the projects, I can assure you. It's really about the time frame of delivery. Tony's put a lot of effort with his team into coming up with a time frame that is achievable, and it will be delivered. That funding process is really critical. But as a result of the stock going from 2+ cents, and it was 4 some time ago. So it's none of us, and I can assure you, I've put a lot of money personally, as other members of the board have, and other parties associated who have been long-term shareholders, who none of us are happy about it. I've just put another $500,000 in as part of that process, with my commitment and my belief in the projects. At the price of the SPP at the moment, it is right at the bottom end. The leverage that's available through Orion now is very significant, and I appreciate and understand why shareholders would be miffed. We get that, but equally, I think there's a great opportunity here for participants in the SPP or in the market generally to get in at a point where we're at a real low ebb, but the leverage is very significant. And personally, that's why I've continued to back it, and many of the other shareholders have as well, in the other parties who have been long-term shareholders and have supported it. So the funding side of it, we see a lot of it coming from third parties. There's always an equity component. You can't sort of duck and dive around that, but there are multiple ways of achieving that, and it's not necessarily going to be a rights issue or some deeply discounted issue. It may well take in another form. We're considering all alternatives at the moment. So, I think, again, if we can deliver something on the offtake and demonstrate we've got support from some of the bigger players, that will provide a lot of comfort to the market as well. And I think you would see a re-rating simply on the back of that. But time will tell. But I can assure everybody there's a huge amount of work going into this, and the leverage is very significant. And I think it's a great investment opportunity at the moment.
I've got one here on, if we just stick on this capital for a second, but more, how much capital is required for Keep specifically versus how much capital is required for Priska? So I don't know, Tony, if you want to maybe take that one in terms of, what's needed to, get Orion off the ground, up and running, first pour of concentrate, and the same on the Priska end.
Okay, it's thank you for that. It is an integrated project. So whilst there's been commentary in the market about the uppers are a match fitness part of the business. It gets us into production. We convert from an exploration study type company to a mining company. At this point, there is the total capital that's on a couple of the slides. Peak capital 578 million AUD. I'm getting more proficient at AUD, USD, and ZAR. So that is the total capital to see the main game, Priska Deeps, in operation. Of that, we require 50 plus 20. So 50 is for the uppers to get into production. So the uppers are accessible now as we speak. You can drive down, you can walk up to a draw point and do. We need to do a little bit more than that at this point in time to turn it into a complete operating mine. So that's the 50. And on top of that, we're saying 20 for the ongoing initial steps of dewatering and shaft refurbishment. And then that tails into the large picture. You go 568, 570 something, 570, and take out the 70. So that's the remainder. So there will be just over another 500 million Aussie dollars required to see the phase 2 Deeps fully and finally into production with the project execution.
I got a nice comment in my DMs from someone in the local Priska host community. You'll be pleased to know, just saying positive impact about the mine. Take the community with you, all growing together. So there's a nice feel-good piece for you. I'll follow it up with a tough question though, because you've got to have this balance. So obviously talking about the capital raise and everything else, and that's fine. The next question is something that's very hard for you to talk to, and I recognize that because it's obviously from a regulatory sensitivity perspective, putting out profit forecasts and promises and all those things. However, the question is, what would be the trigger for the group to be, profitable effectively? So you've talked about sort of phase 1 of the project. I think you said match fit was the term. Love the sport references. So does match fit mean profitable? Let me ask you that. Just helping investors understand, like, what does the cash burn period look like? How long until we start to see, nice green numbers from Orion at the bottom of an income statement? Hard question, I know.
Once the uppers are in production, we are profitable. We are making money. It is a volume game. So the uppers, because they're a smaller amount, the volume of profit is not as much. Once we jump up to the deeps, which is in effect a 10 times multiple, you get into the main game. But once 13 months is when the uppers we're producing concentrate and making cash.
I've got another one here, and I think this is actually an interesting one. And I'm sure it is in the BFS somewhere. If somebody dives into both projects, the compendium, I'm sure that goes with both of them. But on a high level, just quickly, is there any difference in the grades between O'Keefe and Priska, or are we looking at the same grade at both sites?
They are close. So Priska has a resource of 31 million tonnes at 1.2% copper, 3.6. It's on slide 5. So there's a resource out of Priska. O'Keefe's is it's a lower resource number, 10 million tonnes at a bit over 1, and they're not dissimilar, but slightly different. And the whole thing will be when the uppers come into production, they are a bulk concentrate, but when O'Keefe comes into production as a pure copper concentrate, and when the Prieska Deeps come in, once again it's pure copper and a separate pure zinc concentrate.
Like to ask something about the slide with the cost curve, because that's something that I think is always very interesting to see, this concept of basically all the mines out there, people know what their operating costs are per unit, and so we can kind of see where you are. And there's the comment there on optimizing one of the projects. I think it's O'Keefe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that just to be able to raise capital in a way that you think leaves enough on the table for shareholders, or is that to be able to raise capital at all? So is that like a ticket to the game, right to operate profitably? Or is it about saying, dear shareholders, we're trying to do this in an optimized way that minimizes the dilution over time. Hence, we're going to optimize this thing first and then take a better, shiny, nice, clean car to market rather than trying to sell this in its current condition. Just keen to understand like where the break point is on feasibility versus optimization.
Look, to be frank, your nice, clean, shiny car to market is not a bad analogy. And, Prieska is a nice, clean, shiny car. And, it's like taking one of those fabulous old deposits and reworking it and showing that it does have life. And there are many around the world who are doing that at this point in time. The optimization of O'Keefe is about moving it down the cost curve. That plays an important part further down the track in the life of both those projects within Orion, that you need to be at the lower end of the cost curve. You need to be operating at a position in the market where you can absorb the highs and lows of the commodity prices and how they go up and down from time to time. So it is a little bit about a nice shiny car, but it's also about positioning O'Keefe where it will ride out the cycles year in, year out. And that is where juniors and anyone for that matter does well in the mining space.
I've got a few questions. I might just consolidate them into one here, but it's obviously we had a lot of action, copper prices overnight in the US, but we'll leave that aside for now. It seems to be a US problem rather than what's happening in London. But we've seen a nice tick up in copper prices, let's say, since the start of the year. And Dennis, I don't know, maybe if you want to talk about this one, but where prices are now and how that is being influenced by global demand and supply in copper itself. So if we just take the commodity as a whole in terms of new supply coming on market, where supply is globally, and how that fits into the investment proposition for Orion as a copper producer. And we can touch on zinc if you want, but I think copper is the main game here.
Yeah, look, it was interesting at the opening. Sorry, not the ministerial visit. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Here we get the opening when it's in due course. There was a reporter who asked me, because the day before Trump had come out and made a comment about some of the sanctions on South Africa and so forth. And look, to be frank, if we were running this business, depending on what Trump says, mate, we'll be hop and jumping every second day, right? So we're not fussed about it. I mean, the fundamentals for copper are so compelling, and we've got 2 fully permitted projects. They're ready to go. We'll get the funding in place. They're high quality. I mean, Prieska, there's in the quarterly, we've just put some information in there about the upside. Tony's been getting our geological team onto that, and you look at the upside at Prieska, it's compelling. You've got the highest grade, widest ore intersection is at the southeastern extension of a 2.6 kilometre VMS deposit, and we've done a downhole EM, and there's a great big conductor sitting under it. I mean, you know, that's just one example, right? So that's going to be high quality copper. It's got enhanced grades. It's got elevated gold and silver and so forth. So, you know, for us, the demand for copper is going to be so strong, and you know, it's not whatever Trump doesn't worry us, because there are much bigger players globally in the demand for copper, for all the reasons everyone's aware of. I don't need to go through that, but the outlook is really significant. We've got you know, you look at globally, there are a lot of projects, but they're years away from production. You know, as we said, we would have liked to have been a bit more advanced, but you know, it doesn't detract from the quality of our projects. So the copper, you know, you look at the copper production out of O'Keefe, 2 million tonnes. You know, it's just staggering that that's happened, and no one's done any work in the north, you know, in that area for years, you know, decades, literally. And Copper 360 having a good crack at it. You know, they've had a few setbacks. We wish them well. You know, it's really important that Copper 360 do well. It's important for them. It's important for us. You know, and you know, we really, you know, would love to see them perform extremely well, and for us to do the same. You know, so but the outlook, you know, for us with copper is very positive, and I think the outlook for zinc is also very positive, but it's not going to drive the investment interest that the copper is. So, you know, you can see some of the targets we've got at O'Keefe, you know, where some of the grades that have been mined in that area in the past are just amazing, you know. So, you know, we all live in hope and often die in despair, but I think there's so many targets there. If we get the funding in place, we've got every chance of cracking something quite significant. That's our plan.
I'd like to try and squeeze in one. Oh, sorry, Tony. Did you want to add to that?
No.
Okay.
All I was going to say is I remember starting up an operation in Australia at the time. Escondida was coming online. They'd shipped their first concentrate, and because at the time I was part of BHP, I knew the Escondida folk very, very well. Copper has always been a wonderful metal to be in. I see no reason for it to change. And the most important thing for Orion will be have a good cost structure, be down the bottom end of the cost curve, and deliver Prieska and O'Keefe well into the market. That's my focus.
I just want to make one more, I guess, just comment before we finish. So I've had a couple in my DMs talking about a potential share consolidation, referencing the 7.3 billion shares in issue. Just an interesting point there. I'm not asking you because you can't comment on that. I'm more just, you know, playing it back to you that there's a couple of comments along those lines. The question I wanted to ask you, though, is, you know, the share purchase plan is a very noble thing. I love the fact that it gives people access. In some respects, it's a slightly double-edged sword because you can have a very liquid shareholder register, and then you can end up with a situation where a share price can move against you quite quickly versus having, you know, long-term shareholders where it's a small percentage of their wealth. They understand that they need to hold through the cycle, etc. I guess the question is, overall, are you happy with how the share purchase plans have gone? Is this something you're going to continue doing? I mean, there's one live right now. I guess just anything to close there around why you think retail investors are important to have on your register.
Dennis?
Yeah, look, it is. Yeah, it is important for us, and we clearly, you know, your major shareholders are critical. You know, they're the ones who often write the big checks and underpin it. But you know, the smaller shareholders, and I've seen many examples of this in Australia, you know, and they've done very, very well of getting involved. And we have to treat every shareholder the same. You know, when it comes to an opportunity to invest, you know, we got funding from the SPP last year, which was really important. You know, that enabled us to complete the DFSs, and those shareholders who put their funds in deserve the opportunity. Okay, we've discussed it's not pleasant at this level, but they should, regardless of that, they need to be given the opportunity to still participate and position themselves so they're not diluted by other parties coming in. And you know, we would just love to see a big uplift. If we deliver on what we've said we're planning to do, there will be a significant re-rating, and you know, those shareholders who have backed us are entitled to that uplift, like any of the major shareholders. So, you know, we're very, very keen to see as many of our retail shareholders continue to back us, and they will have our full commitment that we'll be doing everything that we possibly can, you know, to get a very positive outcome for them.
Great. Well, thank you to everyone who chose to spend time with us today, and a special thank you to Dennis and Tony. We've had a great turnout on the call and a lovely discussion. So thank you very, very much for this time that you chose to also spend with the retail investors and to engage with us on this platform. To all of those on the call, we've had several new companies that are still interested in participating on Unlock the Stock but haven't confirmed dates yet. So please just watch out for our invitations. What I can confirm is that CANS, which is a returning company to Unlock the Stock, will be featured on Thursday, the 11th of September. And that is all from my side then. Goodbye.